The U.S. Embassy website can be quite confusing and intimidating. However, renewing my passport here in Thailand was quite easy. Details coming right up.
1, 2, 3,
Aloha!
We are Kensho Quest.
We travel to open our minds and our hearts.
Let's make friends around the world!
We're a family of 5 with over 10 years experience traveling long term. We provide tips, hacks, and hope to inspire you to travel long term too. So hit that subscribe button. All right, each embassy and consulate has a little bit different rules, so I'm going to provide a bunch of links down below, and my experience is specific to Thailand. Now this method is specific to mailing in your passport to the embassy. You can also go in, however, at least according to the Thai embassy, is that it will not save you any time. In fact, it's going to take you more time because you're going to spend a few hours there. And in the end result, they're going to mail you your passport anyways. We are currently living in Hua Hin, Thailand. Though we are not permanent residents, we are under a tourist visa, and we've been here for over 6 months now. So if you are traveling long term, you can still renew your passport while you are abroad. In my case, my passport is not actually expiring for 2 more years. However, my passport is completely full. So I recommend that if you have 4 to 6 pages left in your passport and you haven't left the US yet, please renew it ahead of time because they can fill up really fast. Since you will be mailing your passport and having it returned via the mail, you need to have an address. And I recommend that you have a minimum of 3 weeks because the consulate says it will take 2 to 3 weeks for you to get your passport back. In my case, the juristic office of the condominium where we are living actually lost my passport. However, they did find it the very next day. For Thailand, the first thing you're going to want to do is go to the embassy website. Again, I will link that below, and fill out the questionnaire to ensure that you qualify to be able to mail in your passport and get it renewed that way. Assuming that you do qualify, the next thing you're going to want to do is download the checklist and do everything on that checklist if it applies to you. The very first thing you need is your US passport. Again, this process will not work if you do not have it because you will be mailing that into the embassy. Next, you need to fill out the form DS-82. You can fill that online directly on the embassy website, or you can download it and fill it out that way. Then you need to print that out. You will also need a 2x2 passport photo, no glasses, and there's some other details that you might want to read on the checklist to ensure that your photo meets those requirements. Next, if you have had a name change, you will need to provide other documents such as a certified birth certificate or an original birth certificate. There are some other options, so again, please check that checklist. The next step is to figure out the payments. You will need to provide at least 2 bank drafts. One is for the passport and one for the return envelope fees coming back to you via mail. Now, when you go to the bank, you're going to need to get a bank draft for the amount of the passport fee. That fee changes, so please pay attention to the embassy website to check what the current fees are. In my case, I had to get a bank draft for 4,500 baht. However, that is now lower. It is currently 4,420 baht. The reason for the change is the fluctuation in currency. So make sure you have that correct amount when you mail in your packet. The second bank draft fee is 100 baht, and that is for the return envelope. You need to have these as 2 separate bank drafts. You can't combine them into one. If you're wondering, well, what is a bank draft? It is very similar to a cashier's check or a money order back in the United States. But what if you don't have a Thai bank account? That's not a problem either. On the embassy website, they list 3 particular banks: Kasakorn, Bangkok Bank, and Siam Commercial Bank. We've used all 3 of these banks, and the service has always been really good. Now, on the checklist next to the passport fee, you also see a passport card option. This is the first time I have opted to get this, and I highly recommend it. By having the passport card, in most cases, that will suffice instead of having to show your passport, for instance, at the bank or at the post office or many of these other places where you don't actually need an immigration stamp. The current fee for the passport card is 1,020 baht. In my case, I combined the 2 fees for the passport card and the actual passport into one bank draft. And then for the return envelope fees, I paid 200 baht for once for the passport card and once for the passport. On the embassy website, they have a sample that you can print out of an actual bank draft. I highly recommend you do this so you can just bring this to the bank and show them, and they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Now, another good tip is to make sure that you go to a bank that's in a busy place like a shopping mall, because the busier the place is, the higher chance that there will be a lot of foreigners in there and a higher chance that they will speak really good English. I went to Kasakorn Bank. They asked me for my passport, and they were able to make up the 2 bank drafts, and that only cost 20 baht each. After you have your bank drafts, you are ready to mail your packet to the US Embassy. So again, look at that checklist and make sure you have everything in there for your situation. Then you want to go to the post office or to DHL. If you were going to DHL, make sure that they mail locally because a lot of them are global services only. Now, if you go to the post office, that's no problem, which is what I did. And I bought a padded envelope from there and I mailed it via EMS. And again, they asked me for my passport as usual. That cost less than 200 baht to send off, and Bangkok Embassy received it within a day. Inside that envelope, make sure you put everything that's listed on that checklist, because if you forget one thing, you're just not going to get your passport. So go over it very carefully and make sure all your documents are in the envelope. Exactly 14 days later, I received an email from the US Embassy saying that my passport will be mailed in 1 to 2 days. And sure enough, the very next day I logged onto the Thailand Post website and I entered the tracking code and it said it was delivered. However, as I mentioned before, our condominium, they lost it, but they were able to recover it by the next day. So huge relief there. However, when I opened up my passport packet, I did not have my passport card. It came with a letter from the embassy, my old passport, and my new passport. I decided to wait, and sure enough, a week later, I get another email from the embassy saying that your passport card will be sent in the next couple of days. And again, the very next day, it was delivered. So all in all, the entire process to get both took 23 days for me to get both a passport and a passport card since they were sent separately. Now you can see why I had to pay 2 separate envelope return fees. The last tip is they will return your old passport and there will be a couple of holes in it to signify that this passport is no longer valid. And you may need this depending on your situation. In our case, we are trying to renew our visa again, which we did, and I did have to show that to the immigration officer, as well as the letter that came from the US Embassy that says, hey, please accept this new passport, is basically what it was saying. It would be appreciated if you could transfer the bearer's immigration stamp from his/her canceled passport to the new one. Your assistance is very much appreciated. And they took it, but they did charge me a 500 baht transfer fee. Now that my new passport has all the current stamps, I probably no longer need to be carrying around my old passport, but I am going to hang on to it just in case I do need to show it at some other point in time. So again, while the US Embassy site may be a bit intimidating and confusing, the process itself was quite easy. I hope you found this useful. Hopefully your process will be just as easy. And if you are traveling long term, you might be interested in this video up here, which talks about how to import goods. In this case, we talk about importing supplements and how to save money and avoid custom fees if possible. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.